First contact gone wrong. The deep space research vessel RSS Curiosity drifted silently through the Carina Nebula's outer rim, its sensors probing the cosmic dust for signs of exotic particle formations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the main observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling purples and blues of the nebula before her. 20 years of space exploration had taught her to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared her for what their sensors picked up next. "Doctor, we're detecting a massive energy signature approaching at FTL speeds," announced Lieutenant Sarah Chen, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Whatever it is, it's bleeding radiation like nothing I've ever seen." Elena straightened her back, instantly alert. "Show me." The main display flickered to life, revealing a vessel unlike anything in human records. Its hull seemed to ripple like liquid metal, covered in geometric patterns that defied Euclidean geometry. But what caught Elena's attention wasn't its alien design. It was the obvious damage. Entire sections of the ship were torn open to space, and what appeared to be emergency force field generators were failing one by one. "They're dropping out of FTL," Sarah reported, her voice tense. "Impact in 3 minutes." Elena's mind raced through protocols that never anticipated this scenario. Sound general quarters, deploy emergency braking arrays, match their velocity, and prepare for emergency rescue operations. The Curiosity's crew sprung into action with practiced efficiency. The research vessel might not be a military ship, but humans had learned long ago that space exploration required preparing for any contingency. As the alien vessel decelerated, their sensors got their first clear look at its occupants. The beings inside were crystalline in nature, their bodies seeming to shift between solid and liquid states. Many were injured, their crystalline forms cracked or partially shattered. "They're broadcasting something," Sarah announced. "It's not any language in our database, but the pattern suggests distress." Elena made a decision. Open a channel. Universal Greeting Protocol. The main screen flickered again, revealing what Elena assumed was the alien vessel's bridge. A beam of shifting purple crystal stood, or rather, flowed, at what appeared to be a command position. Its form pulsed with weak light, suggesting injury or exhaustion. "This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez of the RSS Curiosity. We're here to help." The crystalline being's form rippled, and suddenly their translator picked up a pattern it could decode. "Help. Yes. Pursued. Weapon. Ancient. Awakened. No time." Before Elena could respond, their sensors screamed a warning. A massive gravitational distortion was forming behind the alien vessel. "Energy spike," Sarah shouted. "Something's coming through." The space behind the alien ship twisted, and through the distortion came something that made Elena's blood run cold. It was a construct of some kind, but it moved like no machine she'd ever seen. Its surface was covered in symbols that hurt to look at, and it radiated an aura of wrong that set off every survival instinct in her body. The alien captain's voice came through clearer now, terror evident despite the translation. "The Harbinger follows. Please, help us. Our children." Elena didn't hesitate. "Lieutenant Chen, emergency docking procedures. Get those people aboard now. Engineering, redirect power to forward shields, and prepare for immediate jump to FTL." "But doctor," Sarah protested, "regulations require quarantine procedures for first contact scenarios." "There are children on that ship, Lieutenant," Elena cut her off. "Sometimes humanity's greatest strength is knowing when to break the rules." What followed was 30 minutes of controlled chaos. The Curiosity's crew worked with desperate efficiency, extending docking tubes, stabilizing the alien vessel's failing life support, and evacuating its passengers. The construct, the Harbinger, grew closer with each passing minute, its presence causing increasing interference with their systems. As the last group of aliens was brought aboard, Elena noticed something remarkable. Despite their injuries and terror, the crystalline beings moved with precise coordination, helping their weakest members, passing children ahead of adults. They weren't just refugees. They were a civilization worth saving. Final group aboard, Sarah reported. But doctor, the Harbinger is targeting us. Our shields won't hold against whatever it's charging. Elena smiled grimly. Who said anything about our shields? Engineering, execute program Prometheus. Sarah's eyes widened as she realized what her commander intended. The Curiosity's shield generators had been modified years ago, following an incident with an unstable pulsar. They could be overloaded to create a massive electromagnetic pulse, something that might just affect whatever ancient technology powered the construct. Shields at critical, engineering reported. Pulse ready. The Harbinger loomed closer, its weapon ports glowing with eldritch energy. Now, the Curiosity's shields exploded outward in a wave of electromagnetic energy. The Harbinger's surface rippled, its symbols flickering like broken neon. It wasn't destroyed, but it was stunned. Jump drive spooled, Sarah announced. Ready on your mark. Elena took one last look at the ancient construct, already beginning to recover. Execute jump. Let's show our new friends what humanity does best. The impossible. The Curiosity vanished into FTL, leaving the Harbinger behind. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. They had saved these refugees, yes, but in doing so, they had drawn humanity into something far bigger than a simple rescue mission. In the medical bay, as she watched human doctors working to stabilize injured crystalline beings with technology they'd invented on the spot, Elena realized that this was why humanity had come to the stars. Not just to explore, but to help, to protect, to face the unknown with courage and creativity. The alien captain approached her, its crystalline form still damaged but stabilizing. Your people risked everything for strangers. Why? Elena smiled. Because that's what humans do. We see someone in need, we help. We face impossible odds, we innovate. And when ancient horrors threaten the innocent, we stand and fight. The captain's form rippled in what Elena was beginning to recognize as their version of respect. Then perhaps the legends of humanity's courage weren't exaggerated after all. Oh, Elena replied, watching her crew adapt and improvise to care for their alien guests. I think you'll find that when it comes to humanity, the legends rarely capture just how stubborn we can be. The hidden truth. 3 days after their desperate escape, the RSS Curiosity orbited a remote brown dwarf star, its systems running silent. In the ship's converted cargo bay, now serving as a temporary refugee center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as her crew and their crystalline guests worked together to piece together the full scope of their situation. The alien captain, who had introduced themselves as Ixval, projected a holographic star map from their crystalline form. The Harbinger first appeared here. They indicated a point of light that pulsed ominously. At first, we thought it was merely an ancient derelict, one of many artifacts left behind by the precursors. We were wrong. Elena studied the map, noting the pattern of system-wide evacuations that had followed the Harbinger's awakening. You mentioned it was a weapon. What kind of weapon requires an AI so advanced it can adapt to any defense? Ixval's form dimmed slightly. What Elena had learned was their expression of grief. We believe it was designed to fight something worse. The precursors' records speak of a great war, but much was lost. What we know is that the Harbinger doesn't just destroy. It learns, it evolves, and it uses what it learns to become more efficient at its task. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, who had been analyzing data from their encounter, spoke up. That explains why our EMP trick worked, but probably won't again. It's already adapted its shielding. She projected her own analysis, showing the complex algorithms she detected in the Harbinger's response patterns. This isn't just advanced AI. It's something that can rewrite its own core protocols. A young human engineer named Marcus Wong, who had been quietly listening, suddenly straightened. Wait, you said it was designed to fight something worse. What if it's still following its original programming? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. It's not just destroying indiscriminately. It's gathering data, analyzing defensive capabilities, preparing for something. But what? Sarah asked, voicing everyone's concern. Before anyone could respond, the ship's AI announced an urgent message from Earth Command. Elena excused herself and headed to the secure communications room, her mind racing with possibilities. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared, his expression grave. "Dr. Rodriguez, I've reviewed your preliminary report. The Security Council has been in emergency session for the past 48 hours. We've cross-referenced the Harbinger's energy signature with our deep space monitoring archives." He paused, and Elena's stomach tightened. "We've detected similar signatures in other galaxies. They're faint due to light speed limitations, but they're there. This isn't an isolated incident." Elena leaned against the console, the weight of this revelation pressing down on her. How many? Dozens, possibly hundreds, and they're all moving in patterns consistent with systematic search protocols. Back in the cargo bay, Elena shared this information with their alien guests. The reaction was immediate, ripples of light cascading through their crystalline forms in what she now recognized as extreme distress. Ixval's voice trembled as they spoke. "The legends, they speak of the Great Sleep. When the precursors faced an enemy they couldn't defeat, they created the Guardians, what we now call Harbingers. But the enemy never came. We always assumed they had succeeded in stopping whatever threat they faced." Marcus, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up again. "Or maybe the threat is still coming, and the Harbingers are waking up because they've detected something we can't yet see." Elena watched as human and alien minds alike grappled with this possibility. The Harbinger wasn't just a random threat. It was an ancient defense system reactivating after eons of dormancy. But why now? What had triggered it? Sarah pulled up new data on her terminal. "Doctor, look at this. I've been analyzing the radiation patterns from the Harbinger. There's something embedded in them, a repeating sequence. It's not just random noise." Elena moved to her station, examining the patterns. Years of research in exotic particle physics had taught her to recognize order and chaos. This isn't just a sequence. It's a countdown. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. The Harbinger wasn't just preparing. It was waiting for something specific, something that was coming. Ixval moved closer to the display, their crystalline form refracting the holographic light in complex patterns. "Our scientists detected similar patterns but couldn't decode them. Perhaps this is why our peoples have met. Your human perspective sees patterns we cannot." Elena nodded slowly, an idea forming. "And your crystalline technology might be able to process data in ways our computers can't. Together, Sarah finished. We might be able to crack this code before it's too late." As the human crew and their alien guests began working on this new puzzle, Elena couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and exhilaration. They were facing something far bigger than a single ancient weapon. They were racing against time to understand a threat that had frightened a civilization advanced enough to create something like the Harbinger. But as she watched her crew work, saw the determination in their eyes, and the seamless way they collaborated with their alien guests, she felt something else too. Hope. Humanity had always thrived when faced with impossible challenges. Now, combined with the unique perspectives and abilities of their new allies, perhaps they had a chance to succeed where even the precursors had failed. Marcus voiced what everyone was thinking. "Whatever's coming, whatever the Harbinger is preparing for, we're going to face it together. And maybe that's what makes the difference this time." Elena smiled, recognizing the quintessentially human optimism in his words. The truth they had uncovered was terrifying, but it had also given them something invaluable: purpose. Now they just had to figure out what the countdown was leading to, and more importantly, how to prepare for it. "Well," she said, pulling up a new set of calculations, "let's show these ancient AIs what happens when humanity and the Crystal Collective put their minds together." Innovation under pressure. The RSS Curiosity's engineering bay had been transformed. Where once neat rows of equipment stood, now a bizarre hybrid of human and crystalline technology filled the space. Marcus Wong stood at the center of the organized chaos, his dark hair disheveled from running his hands through it in frustration. The problem isn't just computational power, he explained to the assembled team of human and crystalline engineers. It's that we're trying to process quantum-level calculations with linear systems. Even our most advanced quantum computers can't handle the complexity of the Harbinger's code. Ixval's crystalline form shifted in what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of deep thought. Our biocrystal matrices can process quantum states naturally, but we lack the creative framework to interpret the patterns we see. The Harbinger's code speaks in paradoxes our minds cannot reconcile. Elena Rodriguez watched from the doorway as human and alien minds grappled with the challenge. The countdown they'd discovered hidden in the Harbinger's emissions had accelerated. They now had less than 72 hours until it reached zero, and still no idea what would happen when it did. Sarah Chen's voice came over the intercom. "Doctor, we're picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple signatures matching the Harbinger's energy profile. They're converging." "How many?" Elena asked, already moving toward the bridge. 7. No, 12. "They're moving in formation, Doctor. Whatever's going to happen, they're gathering for it." In the engineering bay, Marcus suddenly straightened, his eyes wide with realization. "That's it. We've been thinking about this all wrong. We don't need to decode the Harbinger's programming. We need to understand its purpose." He rushed to the central holographic display, pulling up the data they'd gathered. "Look at these patterns. We've been treating them like a language, but what if they're more like music? Each Harbinger is part of a larger symphony, and the countdown is just the conductor's baton." One of the crystalline engineers, whose name translated roughly to echo of breaking waves, moved closer to the display. Their form began resonating with the patterns, creating harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "Yes," Echo hummed, their crystalline body refracting light in complex patterns. "We can feel it now. The patterns, they're not just data. They're a calling." Elena returned to engineering just in time to hear this exchange. A calling to what? Marcus was already reconfiguring their sensors. Whatever the precursors built the Harbingers to fight, it must communicate on similar frequencies. The Harbingers aren't just weapons, they're an early warning system. They're trying to detect their ancient enemy by mimicking its communication patterns. Which means, Elena continued, catching on, if we can understand those patterns, we might be able to predict where and when this enemy will appear, Marcus finished. The next 48 hours were a blur of innovation and collaboration. Human creativity combined with crystalline computational power in ways neither species had imagined possible. Marcus and Echo led the development of what they called a quantum resonance interpreter, a hybrid device that used crystalline matrices to process quantum data and human neural network algorithms to interpret the results. The device itself was beautiful in its strangeness. Crystalline structures grew through human-designed circuits, creating something that looked more like art than technology. But it worked. For the first time, they could read the symphony of signals passing between the gathering Harbingers. "It's not just a countdown," Sarah announced, studying the first results. "It's coordinates. The Harbingers are predicting, or detecting, a breach point. Something is going to break through into our space-time." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Where?" Sarah's fingers flew over her console. "If these calculations are correct, less than a light year from Earth." The revelation hit the crew like a physical blow. Whatever ancient enemy the precursors had feared enough to create the Harbingers was about to emerge practically in humanity's backyard. But instead of panic, Elena saw something else spread through her crew. Determination. Humans had faced extinction-level threats before, from their own nuclear weapons to asteroid impacts to climate change. Each time, they'd survived through innovation, cooperation, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. Marcus was already modifying their quantum resonance interpreter. "If we can read their signals, maybe we can transmit on the same frequency." Not to communicate, that would be too complex, but to disrupt. Create interference. HFY's form brightened with understanding. A quantum jamming field. If we can disrupt the Harbinger's coordination, we might buy enough time to evacuate Earth, or even prevent whatever's coming from breaking through. Elena finished. The final 24 hours were a race against time. The entire crew worked without rest, human and crystalline engineers pushing themselves to their limits. They weren't just building a device. They were creating a whole new field of science, combining technologies and theories that had never been meant to work together. As the countdown approached its final hours, Elena stood on the observation deck, watching the gathered Harbingers in the distance. Their ancient forms moved in perfect synchronization, preparing for an enemy only they remembered. Sarah joined her at the window. The quantum jammer is ready for testing. Marcus says it's either going to work perfectly or tear a hole in space-time. Elena smiled grimly. Sounds about right for human engineering. Any word from Earth Command? They've initiated quiet evacuation protocols, but there's no way to move billions of people in time. We're the first line of defense, Doctor. Maybe the only line. Then it's a good thing we have something the precursors never did, Elena replied, watching as human and crystalline crew members worked together seamlessly below. What's that? Each other. Elena turned from the window, her expression determined. The precursors faced this threat alone. They built the Harbingers because they had no one to stand with them. But humanity, we just made first contact with a remarkable species, developed impossible technology, and created a whole new branch of physics, all in less than a week. Together, we might just have a chance to succeed where they failed. As if in response to her words, the quantum resonance interpreter began to hum, its crystalline components glowing with an inner light. The countdown was entering its final phase, and whatever was coming, they would face it together. The battle within. You can't be serious. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered with interference from the gathering Harbingers. Dr. Rodriguez, you're proposing to use an untested device, built with alien technology we barely understand, to interfere with ancient machines that could tear our solar system apart. Elena stood firm in the communications room, her jaw set. With all due respect, Admiral, we're out of options. The breach point will open in less than 12 hours, and the evacuation isn't even 10% complete. Which is precisely why we can't risk our only research vessel on a theoretical solution, the Admiral countered. The Security Council has authorized the deployment of our entire defense fleet. Fall back to Earth and join the defensive line. Before Elena could respond, Sarah burst into the room. Doctor, we have a problem. The crystalline refugees. They're leaving. Elena found HFY in the cargo bay, directing their people toward their repaired vessel. The crystalline captain's usually bright form was dim with what Elena had learned to recognize as resignation. You're running, Elena said. It wasn't a question. HFY's form rippled. We are protecting our children. Your admiral is right. This plan is too dangerous. We have seen 17 worlds fall to the Harbingers. We cannot risk being here when they realize we've been tampering with their signals. So you'll just leave. After everything we've accomplished together. Marcus stepped forward from where he'd been working on the quantum resonance interpreter. This device won't work without your crystalline matrices, without your people's unique abilities. You don't understand. HFY's voice carried harmonics of distress. Our species remembers. In our crystalline structures, we carry the memories of our ancestors. We have seen civilizations fall because they tried to fight instead of flee. The Harbingers cannot be stopped. The cargo bay fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Human crew members watched the exchange, their own fears and doubts reflected in their eyes. Elena realized this was the real battle, not against the Harbingers or their ancient enemy, but against the paralyzing fear of failure. Tell me, Elena said quietly, in all those ancestral memories, do you have any record of a species like humanity? HFY paused. Your kind is unique, Unpredictable. Exactly. Elena stepped closer to the crystalline captain. You know what's in our records. Countless stories of humanity facing extinction. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, climate collapse. Every time, we survived. Not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we refused to accept defeat. She gestured to the quantum resonance interpreter. Look at what we've built together. In 1 week, our species have accomplished what the precursors couldn't in centuries. Why? Because they tried to fight alone. They built the harbingers because they had no one to stand with them. Marcus joined her. The device isn't just technology. It's proof that different species, different ways of thinking, can create something greater than the sum of their parts. A ripple of light passed through the gathered crystalline beings. Echo of breaking waves moved forward. Captain, the humans speak truth. Our memories show us the past, but they cannot predict the future. Perhaps that is why we found each other. Not to repeat history, but to change it. Ixval's form shifted through complex patterns as they considered. Around the cargo bay, both humans and crystalline beings watched, waiting. This wasn't just a decision about staying or leaving. It was a choice between fear and hope. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Sarah's voice came over the intercom. Doctor, the harbingers. They're moving. All of them. They're forming some kind of geometric pattern around the predicted breach point. Elena looked at Ixval. You can feel it, can't you? Through your crystalline senses, something's different this time. The alien captain's form pulsed with newfound intensity. Yes. The patterns, they're stronger than anything in our ancestral memories. Whatever is coming, it's more powerful than what the harbingers were originally built to fight. Then they'll fail, Elena said simply, unless we help them. For a moment that felt like eternity, Ixval was still. Then their form blazed with brilliant light. Perhaps it is time to make new memories, ones that our descendants will carry forward with pride. The effect was immediate. Crystalline beings moved with renewed purpose, reintegrating their technologies with the quantum resonance interpreter. Human crew members jumped back into action, their earlier doubts replaced by determined focus. Marcus grinned as he watched human and alien engineers working in perfect sync. You know, even if this doesn't work, even if we fail, we've already proven something incredible. What's that? Elena asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. That when species come together, when we combine our strengths instead of fearing our differences, we can face anything, even the end of the world. Elena nodded, watching as the impossible device they'd created together hummed with growing power. In less than 12 hours, they would face whatever horror had frightened the precursors enough to create the harbingers. But they wouldn't face it alone. Admiral, she said, reopening the communication channel. The crystalline refugees have chosen to stay and fight. Request permission to proceed with our plan. The Admiral was silent for a long moment, looking at the unified crew of humans and aliens behind her. Finally, he nodded. Permission granted, Doctor. Show us what humanity and our new allies can do together. As the harbingers continued their ominous dance around the coming breach point, Elena felt something she hadn't expected, not just determination, but genuine hope. Whatever emerged from that breach would face something unprecedented. Two species united, bringing together the best of both their civilizations. The real victory, she realized, had already been won. In choosing to stand together, they had overcome the greatest barrier of all, the fear that kept civilizations isolated, fighting alone against the darkness between the stars. Humanity's promise. Space itself seemed to shudder as the final countdown approached zero. The RSS Curiosity held position at the edge of the Harbinger's geometric formation, its hybrid systems humming with power. On the bridge, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as reality began to twist. Quantum resonance interpreter at full capacity, Marcus reported from engineering, his voice steady despite the tension. The crystalline matrices are synchronized with the Harbinger's frequency. Sarah's hands flew across her console. Multiple gravitational anomalies forming. Whatever's coming through, it's big. Really big. The Harbingers moved in perfect synchronization, their ancient forms gathering energy in patterns that hurt to look at. But now, thanks to their hybrid technology, Elena could see what they were really doing, creating a containment field around the breach point. They're not just weapons. Ixval observed, their crystalline form resonating with the energy patterns. They're a prison gate, designed to slam shut when the enemy appears. Elena nodded, but they weren't designed to work alone. Captain, is your people's crystalline network ready? We are prepared. Though I must warn you, linking our consciousness directly to your device, while it interfaces with the Harbingers, there are no memories of anything like this in our entire history. That's because no one's ever been crazy enough to try it, Marcus said with a grim smile. Good thing humans specialize in crazy. The breach began to open, a tear in the fabric of reality itself. Through it came something that defied description. A mass of shifting geometries and impossible angles, radiating power that made the ship's sensors scream in protest. By the first crystal, Ixval whispered, the ancestral memories were wrong. It's not an army or a weapon. It's a dimensional predator, Elena finished, something that feeds on reality itself. The precursors didn't build the Harbingers to fight a war. They built them to keep this thing caged. The entity emerged fully into their space-time, its vast form dwarfing even the gathered Harbingers. Ancient machines moved to contain it, but Elena could see they were already failing. This thing had grown stronger during its imprisonment, learning, evolving. Now, Elena ordered, execute quantum interference pattern. Marcus activated the device, and the crystalline refugees joined their consciousness into a singular network, channeling their unique quantum processing abilities through the human-designed interface. The quantum resonance interpreter lit up like a miniature sun. The effect was immediate and stunning. The hybrid device didn't just jam the Harbinger signals, it enhanced them, adding human ingenuity and crystalline processing power to ancient precursor technology. The containment field shifted, becoming something new. It's working, Sarah exclaimed. The field is adapting, becoming more complex. The entity can't predict its patterns. But the dimensional predator was far from defeated. It lashed out with tentacles of pure mathematical chaos, trying to disrupt the field. Warning lights flashed across the Curiosity's bridge as systems began to overload. The power requirements are too high, Marcus warned. We're losing containment. Elena watched as human and crystalline crew members worked together, pushing their hybrid technology to its limits. They had come so far, achieved so much together. She refused to fail now. Ixval, she said suddenly, you said your people carry memories in your crystalline structure. Could we use that? Not just process power, but actual experiences. The crystalline captain's form pulsed with sudden understanding. Yes, yes, we could feed the containment field with the combined experiences of both our species. Not just calculations, but actual patterns of thought and memory. Do it, Elena ordered. Everyone, focus on what we've achieved together. The moments of connection, of breakthrough, of hope. Show this thing what happens when different species unite. The quantum resonance interpreter transformed, becoming a conduit not just for power, but for consciousness itself. Human determination and creativity flowed together with crystalline wisdom and memory. The containment field became more than technology. It became a story, their story. The dimensional predator recoiled as it encountered something it had never faced before. The combined will of two species working as one. Where the precursors had tried to cage it with pure force, this new barrier was alive with possibility, with the kind of innovation that only comes from different minds working together. The field is stabilizing, Sarah reported in awe. It's not just containing the entity, it's pushing it back. Through their combined consciousness, they could feel the dimensional predator's confusion turning to fear. This was not the static cage it had escaped before. This was something adaptive, growing, learning. Something it couldn't break because it couldn't predict. With a reality-bending screech, the entity began to retreat. The Harbingers, now working in concert with the quantum resonance interpreter, pressed their advantage. The breach began to close, but this time the seal would be different, maintained not by ancient machines alone, but by the combined will of humanity and the Crystal Collective. As the last traces of the dimensional predator vanished and the breach sealed itself, a cheer went up from the combined crew. Human and crystalline beings celebrated together, their victory made sweeter by the bonds they had forged. What happens now? Sarah asked as the Harbingers began to power down, their ancient purpose fulfilled in a way their creators had never imagined. Elena looked at Ixval, seeing the same certainty in their crystalline form that she felt in her heart. Now we build something new. The precursors tried to protect the universe alone, and they failed. We succeeded because we stood together. A new alliance. Ixval agreed, their form glowing with possibility. Not just between our peoples, but open to all species. Together we can face whatever other threats lurk between the dimensions. Marcus grinned as he checked the quantum resonance interpreter's readings. Well, we've already rewritten physics, created impossible technology, and trapped a dimensional predator. I'd say that's a pretty good start. As the Curiosity set course for Earth, Elena reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. They had set out to explore the cosmos and found not just alien life, but a truth more powerful than any technology. That the greatest achievements come not from standing alone, but from reaching out to others across the vastness of space. The Harbingers would remain as guardians, but no longer alone. Humanity and the Crystal Collective would stand with them, ready to face whatever challenges the universe had in store, and they would face them together, proving that the greatest force in any dimension wasn't weapons or technology, but the simple promise of different peoples joining hands in friendship and common cause. It was, Elena thought, watching human and crystalline crew members working side by side, exactly the kind of ending humanity had always dreamed of finding among the stars.